So this little girl right here is just 5 days old. And this right here is the same exact chick at about 3 weeks old. Look at all these beautiful feathers coming in. And this right here is the exact same chick at 8 weeks old. And today I'm gonna be showing you how to raise these girls from start to finish so you can get unlimited, delicious eggs right from your backyard. Now, the reason I am so excited to bring you this video is because I am giving you a complete guide, everything in one video, and I'm taking you along for the entire multiple month process, which is something that I found didn't really exist when I was trying to learn this, and I had to piece together a lot of information, and I made a lot of mistakes. And I've collected all of the information and skills that you need to really be successful at this, which is gonna be broken down into these sections in this video. And the first section is why you would raise chicks, because I'm sure there's some of you that are slightly on the edge. Personally, I was on the edge for many years. I was lucky enough to inherit chickens and a chicken coop from the past owners, so I was grandfathered into a system that was already working pretty well, but I always thought it would be cool to raise chicks, and these chickens were older and laying less eggs. And that's the reality of chickens. As they get older, they lay less eggs, which is why it's nice to bring in new chicks that are laying so many eggs per year when they are young, which is the first reason you want to raise chicks at home. You're gonna get the best eggs of your life, which you probably know by now. Another reason is if you have kids, I mean, your kids will be very excited to have some baby chicks around. I get so excited and I pump my kids up for a few months before I get chicks in anticipation. And it's such a fun thing to bond over, and also getting them used to taking care of young animals is also a huge bonus. But I would say the biggest hidden factor that I wasn't expecting was the feeling of self-sufficiency in raising an animal yourself. Once you get the supplies, which are pretty inexpensive, and you learn the skills and you go through the process, you now have those skills for life. And these are animals that can provide food, that can provide fertilizer for your garden. And for me, a suburban boy, someone who did not grow up around farm animals, knowing I have the ability to raise an animal that can provide for myself and my family really levels up my feeling of self-sufficiency, which is a nice feeling to have, especially with the modern food industry and factory farms and just the way things are heading. These skills that have been lost by most humans over the years, I think will be more essential moving forward, in my opinion. So when you actually commit to getting chicks, the next question you'll need to answer is when you should get the chicks. And the easiest way to think about it is just like growing a little vegetable seedling. Every gardener knows timing is everything, because a baby plant or seedling doesn't like temperatures that are too cold or temperatures that are too hot. It will stunt or kill that plant. You gotta really nail that timing so it's a good climate for the plant to thrive. And baby chicks are no different. They can't handle really cold temperatures, they can't handle really hot temperatures. So the most ideal time is spring to raise chicks. Take your last frost date and subtract, say, 5 to 6 weeks, and that would be the earliest you wanna raise them, because you could start them inside, and by the time they have all of their feathers, which happens in about 5 or 6 weeks, that's when they are hardy enough to be outside in colder temperatures. Now this year, I was a little bit overly anxious to get them, especially because I was making this video. So I got the very first batch of chicks that was delivered to my local nursery at the end of November, which brings me into the next point. Where do you find chicks? How do you get them? Now there's 3 main options. Number 1, if you have a rooster and you have pre-existing chickens, then your eggs can be fertilized and you can hatch your own baby chicks. But if you're at that level, you probably don't need this video at all. The second way is ordering them online from some type of chick hatchery. I've never done this personally, but I know there's a lot of good sources that you can order from online, which brings me into the third way, and my favorite way, which is picking them up from a local hatchery or a local nursery that gets a big shipment of chicks in at one time. Now I'm super lucky and I have a nursery like 5 minutes from here that in the spring gets new chicks every 2 weeks. And what I do is I call them up and they tell me the breeds that they're getting in, which brings me right into the next point, picking the right breed of chicken or chick. Now there are thousands of chicken breeds. It is a rabbit hole to go down to, or a chicken hole, whatever you want to call it. I'm not covering different breeds in this video because it would be way too long. But what I will cover are just a few things to keep in mind when you are researching different chicken breeds on the internet, which is the best place to do it. Number 1 is every chicken has a different tolerance to climate and weather. Some are more cold hardy, some can handle more heat. So of course you want to research that to make sure it works for your climate. Number two is that different breeds have different temperaments, which you start to understand when you have a bunch of different types of chickens. Some are super chill and friendly, some are a little crazier, some are a little bit more aggressive. Just another thing to keep in mind. Number three is that they all lay different amounts of eggs per year. And my favorite thing about picking chicken breeds is that they lay different color eggs. So you can pick out breeds depending on the color egg, and you can have rainbow eggs, which now after a few years of getting different breeds, I officially have rainbow eggs, which is a dream come true. The two breeds that were in this week in my nursery were Americanas, which are super friendly. They lay blue and green eggs, super cool patterns, really beautiful chickens, similar to an Easter egger breed, which I already have and I love. And there were also some white leghorns, another great breed. They lay white eggs and they're just a more standard white feathered chicken. And in New York State, where I'm at, the law is that you have to buy at least 6 chicks at a time, which is a nice little flock that they can stay warm together. And also it helps protect from people just buying 1 chick and not actually being serious about it. If you're buying 6 chicks, you're committed. That's a serious endeavor right there. All right, so let's talk about supplies and food, which can definitely be a little bit overwhelming at first. There's a lot of different routes and options you can take here. Now, my setup that I'm gonna show you is something that I have refined over the years. And I think it is such a good system for, say, 4 to 20 chicks. This system is inexpensive and it's very efficient. And it starts with the brooder, which is basically the enclosure or the home for your chicks to keep them warm, to keep them nice and cozy and safe in those early days. Now, there are a lot of different options for chick brooders. The first time I raised chicks, I started off in a little plastic tub like this, which you see a lot. I moved on from this very quickly because the chicks, they get big fast and they're not gonna have space after like 1 week. Now, I love something like this, which is sold as a collapsible dog or just animal crate. You can get these on Amazon and all of the supplies are listed below in the description. These are not super expensive, but they are very sturdy and high quality and will last years. And most importantly, your chicks can be inside one of these things for their entire first few weeks until they go outside. So this is really the only brooder you'll need. And you need some type of bedding at the bottom of your brooder. There's a lot of different options out there. By far my favorite are some finer wood shavings. You need something soft enough that their little feet can handle. But what I love about wood shavings is that they absorb so much of the odor to the point where you barely can smell it. And then you can just throw all the wood chips in a compost pile and boom, perfect compost. Now, moving on to a heat source, which is very important. Without proper heat, since we've ripped these chicks away from their mother, the chicks will die quickly. Now, traditional brooder setup uses one of these heat lamps like they had at the nursery. I think these work better for a larger amount of chicks, but they are a little bit more dangerous because it's just a hot light bulb that's sitting there, and they are a little harder to adjust versus something like this, which I love and I've used for years. These are adjustable little heat trays, which in my opinion is a safer option at home, especially if you're leaving the brooder for multiple hours at a time. You want a really safe option. And the legs are adjustable, so you continue to adjust them as the chicks grow in size. And what I do is I put them on an angle and the chicks huddle right under the heat tray. And since it's on an angle, they can find the perfect amount of heat that is right for them at that time. Now, for a watering system, you can go super inexpensive and just put some water in a bowl. That's gonna work, but I love these little chicken pin pecker things because it keeps the chicks busy, which they really like, and wood chips and food cannot get in the water source, so it keeps things much cleaner. And this is optional, but you can buy these little electrolyte vitamin packs that you can pour in the water for, say, the first week of the chick's life, just to give them a little boost in the early days. Now, same thing for feeders. There's a lot of options out there. I actually had ordered a feeder that was in the mail, so I had to start out with just a bowl of food, which works, but is not a great option because the chicks can step on the food, they can poop in the food, and you want to avoid that. So after a few days, it was replaced with a feeder like this where they peck at, but they don't actually walk in. And one thing that I do build custom is this right here. It's just 2x4s with some hardware cloth on top. And I put the feeder on top of that. So when they walk up, the wood chips fall right through the holes and it keeps the feed much cleaner. Now, for the actual food type. You can order this online. You can get it at your nursery or hatchery. You can go organic, you can go non-organic, you can go medicated or non-medicated. These are all options. You can research this yourself and pick the best option for you. But you do want to get chick-specific feed for the first few weeks of their life because it's just a finer feed. It has the right nutrition for chicks versus older egg-laying hens. And then once they're older, you can convert them over to a standard chicken feed. All right, girls, I've got your cozy home set up. For survival, we need heat, water, and food. And protection, safety from other animals or creatures. Come in. So now we have a very important job. This is an alien world right now. We need to get them introduced to the heat. We need to get them introduced to the food and the water. I'm kind of interested to see what happens just without me interrupting at all. Just letting them discover on their own, and then I'll start helping them out. All right, they found the food. Yep, we've got our first girl pecking. Okay. Food is the easiest. You can smell that. You can see they're a bit cold right now, so they're just huddling together. They don't know about this yet. All right, it's time to play dad. So I'll just take them over to the water. There you go. This sound really triggers them in a good way. You can see they're super interested just from that pecking noise. And they're all coming over. Just kind of get them over there, introduce them to some water. These girls be introduced. Yep, we've got our first pack. All right, so you can see they're huddled over here. They haven't figured out the warmth. So I'm just gonna take it and put it right over them. They're probably super cold. And now they're gonna understand that this thing right here equals warmth. And they've already calmed down a little bit from that warmth. So they're enjoying that. All right, so we're already on day 5. Just an update, I added another heater on another outlet. This is totally a precautionary thing, not mandatory, but in this early stage, if this went out, your chicks would be in big trouble if you're not there to check it. So this extra heater gives me a little peace of mind. They're all hanging out under here. They are doing great. Let's grab one. Hey girls. Oh, you're hiding. There we go. They already have a few little feathers there. So cute. And you can see they're very happy. They're super active. They go from states of just being under the heater to eating to drinking, living their best life. And if you zoom in, little poops everywhere, which is great, but there's no smell. These pine shavings really absorb the smell, which is why I love them. No, it's funny, they're under the other heater now. All right, 2-week update. Look at the girls. They are happy. They are certainly growing. Let's see if I can grab one. They're quick now. Oh, Aye. Got one. You can see feathers coming in really nice. Fur starting to leave, which is sad, but good for their warmth. They can fly. Now 2 weeks in, and it's really the first time things are starting to smell in here. I mean, there's a lot of poop that has absorbed into these pine chips. So anytime it starts to smell like this, which is gonna happen more and more quickly as they get bigger, of course, I'll replace these wood shavings. And the easiest way I've found to do this is just to kind of move everything aside. And you can leave the chicks in there if your brooder's big enough, because they'll just kind of stay in one little corner. And you can shovel out all of the dirty wood chips, pop them in some type of container, which we're gonna compost, and then replace it with some brand new shavings. One more note is that I can continue to, I've been doing it, but higher this a little bit. You still want a nice angle so they can choose where they wanna be in relation to the actual top of the heat lamp, but just make sure you're adjusting your heat source as they get bigger. All right, day 24. So one update is the top stays closed now because you can see they're getting big. They will fly out at this point. So this is when you really got to watch their food and water intake because they go through a lot of water every day and a lot of food. I also can introduce some little mealworms, little protein snack now that they're a little older. Toss those over to them. Let's see if I can catch one. They're getting kind of fast. All right, so there you go, day 24. Still some fuzz, but really developing those feathers nicely. Almost fully feathered, can fly very well. Now at this point, timing-wise, it's still pretty cold outside at night, and they're not fully feathered, so I'm gonna keep them in here. The weather's gonna warm up a little bit, and I'm gonna start working on my integration setup outside, and I'll keep you updated with that. All right, so the chicks are a little over 40 days old. Now you can see they are fully feathered. They look like
an adult chicken, just smaller, which means they are much hardier with all those feathers. They can handle cold temperatures. Now, everyone's timing is going to be different depending on when you get chicks. I do like raising chicks in the spring, so when it gets warmer, they're ready to go outside right away. I was a little bit anxious this year and got them just a bit earlier, and it's the end of March right now, and it just got super cold out of nowhere. So what I'm doing is sort of hardening the chickens off, just like you would harden off a plant from, say, being inside, growing under light. You wouldn't throw that right into the harsh environment just yet. That's what I'm doing with these chicks. Even though they probably would be fine right now out in the coop, just to make the process a little bit more seamless and more comfortable for them, I've transferred the exact same setup I have just out into the garage. So they're outside, it's colder, but it's still protected. I can shut the garage door. There's no wind getting in here. It's just a little less harsh than the actual coop. But remember, once they're out of the safety of your home being inside, they're open to predators out here. So the top will be getting shut always. I've had hawks swoop into the garage and try to get one of these chicks, which is insane. And I'll close the garage door so no ground predators can get in at night, like a raccoon or a fox or whatever. And they'll acclimate to the outdoors, and hopefully in 2-3 weeks, I'll transfer them to the coop.
All right, the final piece to this puzzle of raising chicks is integrating them into the coop. This is my coop right here. This is my chicken run. And these are my older chickens, which makes this process a little more challenging. If you don't have any existing chickens, you just have to make sure your chicken coop is predator proof, meaning from the top, there's some type of protection from aerial predators, and you want some protective fencing buried underneath the ground at least a foot for ground predators so they can't dig under and get your chickens. Now, when dealing with an existing flock, which is my scenario, you do not want to rush this process of getting your chicks right in there. I have learned those lessons the hard way. The term pecking order is a real thing. Chickens will bully each other, especially bigger ones to smaller ones. It's happening right here, actually. These little girls are running around avoiding this little bully. Stop it. Stop it. Now, the best way to integrate younger chicks with older chicks is to slowly get them used to each other. I've had a lot of people comment in and say you can just put the younger chicks into the chicken coop at night with the older chickens and they wake up and they're all a happy family. I have not tried that. That scares me a little bit, especially with chicks that are still small like these girls. What I like to do is create an enclosure. You can do this with any type of fencing that gives them their own protected space right up against your other chickens so they can smell each other. They can just vibe out without actually being able to attack each other. And you want to make sure that that space is enclosed on top because chickens can fly. And then what I did is just built this little mini coop out of some scrap pieces of wood in my garage. And I'm popping that in there for the time being to give them their own space until they're ready to go into the bigger coop. And I'll keep the chicks in there with their own food, their own water source for at least a week. And then I'll start opening the door just slightly so they can still get in and drink their own water, eat their own food, but then they can also start integrating into the bigger run with the older girls. And you just want to keep an eye on this process. Do not rush it. You don't want to go through the entire process of raising these beautiful little chicks and then they take permanent damage from the older girls. And then over time, as the little chicks get bigger and they start getting used to the older girls, that's when you can remove the gate and they can all just live together. So here we go, little chicks doing their thing, older girls. Where are the other ones? Look at that flight. I'm still keeping this up for the time being until they're a little bigger and I feel confident to just remove everything for complete integration. And that is it. Hopefully this video has helped you just feel a little bit more confident on your journey. And if you want more content on self-sufficiency, just click this video right here.